is a civic duty.
Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Good evening to all of you faithful viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's time for the news. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our major stories this evening. Circulation has been restored at the Mobibo Nakoma neighborhood here in Duala after a tense confrontation between commercial motorbike riders, security officials and municipal police agents. The divisional officer for the Duala 1 subdivision who was on the scene accuses the bike riders of bad faith and a lack of goodwill to conform to order. We will be telling you more about the bone of contention in this news edition. Plus, it has been a sad day in India and also in London as at least 200 persons perished in a plane crash. The over 240 passengers were flying from India to London when the crash happened few minutes after taking off from the airport. Viewers, those are our major stories. Details and more in just a moment. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. We told you a while ago in the headlines that circulation is now somehow fluid at the Mobibo Nakoma neighborhood here in the economic capital Duala following some hours of protest by commercial motorbike riders. They are saying no to the fact that they all have to put on a uniform identification jacket. Innocent Asa now tells us more about the bone of contention today.
Gunshots and tear gas canisters fired at Mobibo Nakoma Duala Thursday morning by security forces to disperse rioting commercial motorbike riders. Their excesses were tolerated by security forces who listened to their grievances and promised to provide an instant solution. That is, liberation of bikes belonging to their colleagues seized by the Duala City Council Municipal Police for non-identification.
C'est difficile de les disperser. Non, venez, on ne disperse personne. Et ça, vous tous là, vous avez vos motos à l'intérieur. Les gens qui n'ont pas les motos, ceux qui ont les motos viennent. Ah, ceux qui n'ont pas de moto, on sort une moto. On sort une moto qui ne t'appartient pas, tu prends.
Things turned sour when the van containing the bikes was being driven to Salle de Fête d'Aqua. The bikers went violent, vandalizing the van, thus pushing the security forces to transform. All of the rioters escaped into hiding, and more bikes seized. Some scapegoats were molested. The rioting bike riders began by demanding the municipal police to release the bikes of their colleagues seized for not wearing the identification jacket prescribed by the Duala City Council. According to this bike rider, most of his colleagues in the city of Duala have not admired the jackets because of the MTN logo. To them, they are being forced to make the publicity of the mobile telephone network operator.
And don't take moto for you, take Sandaga. We start a camion, them don't go for moto.
Agitation intensified with more bikers joining and placing barricades on the roads, cutting circulation from Aqua to Bonanjo and vice versa. Gendarmerie and police officials arrived to calm the rioters, but most preferred to go radical, aborting the peace deal to release their bikes. It was finally with the use of force that the rioters were dispersed and the circulation paralyzed for close to 2 hours re-established.
And now, according to a bike rider who had applied for the required identification jacket and has to be collected at South Fed in Aqua here in Duala, the repeated conflicts between his colleagues and the municipal police agent is because the documents they have to compile cost at least 100,000 francs CFA. He explains more to Innocent Ase.
It is true that some commercial bike riders, they have all their documents, but that does not guarantee you to work in Duala. So presently, if you want to work in Duala, you need a jacket like this. Some of our colleagues, some bike riders, they have refused categorically that they are not going to put on this. My license, I made my license, that was 50,000 francs. That was a few years ago. But presently, they have reduced the price to 20 or 30,000, something like that. I made that 50,000. Then of course, all Cameroonians, they have their ID card. So I have my ID card. Then here's my registration certificate, commonly known as categories in French. This one is 20,000. So when you buy an engine bike, automatically they give you this already 20,000. So let me say 50,000, 20,000, we're already 70. Then you have your insurance. Yeah, I made my insurance 50,000 because I have to insure myself, I have to insure my bike, then I have to insure a passenger. We don't do overloading because when you want to do that by chemin, you want to overload, the insurance does not cover you. So the insurance covers you, your passenger, and your bike. All this is about 100 or 120,000 francs. So that is why you see most bike riders in town who are not ready to make all these documents. That's why you see them, they are rioting like that, fighting against authorities, fighting against the police. So it is even a danger for us because they have even promised us that those commercial bike riders, they will see them with this jacket, they are going to beat them and they are going to tear it.
And like we told you, circulation has been restored progressively in Bonakomong after that confrontation, and the divisional officer for the Duala 1 subdivision was at the scene. According to him, he is accusing the bike riders of bad faith and a lack of will to conform to order. For me, I'm from Standard tells us more.
The mobile Bonakongo roundabout in Aqua Duala got transformed into a war scene. As you can see, the gendarmerie vehicle is still right behind me. The armored car and also the water cannons from the police has just left. A group of officials from the Duala City Council, they've left. The atmosphere became tense in the early hours of today when officials from the Duala City Council, led by the Duala City Council Police, engaged a controversial control. They seized commercial motorbikes from bike riders accused of not being in conformity with the conditions needed to exercise in the city of Duala. That degenerated when bike riders came in protest. A host of bike riders came in from all the corners of the city of Duala, with some bike riders wounded, some who had their bikes taken, struggled to regain their bikes, but it wasn't possible. In a tense and controversial atmosphere, the vehicle left with some few bikes which were collected, and bike riders determined to get the bikes followed up. A host of gendarmerie and police officials few meters from this area made use of tear gas and fired bullets. It is degenerated until the descent of the divisional officer for the Duala 1 municipality.
Je vous pose encore la question, est-ce que vous êtes allé vous identifier, on vous a chassé?
Je peux répondre? Laisse-moi répondre. Monsieur le préfet, sous-préfet, bonjour. Je suis tellement content de ce que vous avez dit.
Non, ce que vous dites, il faut parler pour vous. Parce que les autres
moi, je suis allé plusieurs fois avec le récépissé.
Allons-y, on part. Vous comprenez donc.
He says the bike riders have refused to conform and they are determined to get them down to the tune of the orders from the Duala City Council. Live from Mobi Bonakamwa in Aqua Duala, Jofi Chunke, for me, I'm Sean Sander.
Thanks for me. Now let's talk about the alleged disappearance of sexual organs in Yaoundé and also here in the economic capital Duala. In Yaoundé, the commander of the territorial gendarmerie group of Frundis says the disappearance of people's sexual organs within Yaoundé is somehow unfounded. Lieutenant Colonel Jean-Alain Dongo made the declaration after the presentation of some 5 individuals who claimed their manhood were allegedly missing after a test carried out on the 5 of them at the military medical center of the gendarmerie in Yaoundé. The chief medical officer, Colonel Dr. Bengono Jean-Luc, said it was just all psychological problems. Smaldikan Gabriel has more.
Several weeks back, a crowd gathered in Jouvan's neighborhood in Yaoundé, claiming that the manhood of a young man has disappeared after he helped the latter with 50 francs. After this incident, similar scenarios have been recorded within Yaoundé and Duala. At the Gendarmerie Company of Yaoundé 2, 5 individuals who claimed to have lost their manhood were presented alongside 2 who were accused of being the cause for the disappearance of these manhoods. But gendarmes' investigation proved different.
It's a fake one because most often when such cases arise, we always find those people with their manhood, with their sexual organ. With the investigation, it appears that no sex has disappeared.
With the presentation of the 7 individuals, those who thought their manhoods disappeared were taken to the military medical center of the gendarmerie, where the doctor did some checks but discovered something else.
We did not see that any of these individuals have something wrong with their genitals.
For the chief medical doctor at the military medical center of the gendarmerie,
the main complaint that they had was that they had the erectile dysfunction, and this is a very subjective complaint and that have a very important psychological basis.
It was an opportunity for the security officers to give this advice to Cameroonians.
We call on population, we call on people to avoid putting in place their own justice. There is a legal justice. You have to report to the police, you have to report to the gendarmerie, which has the means to carry on investigation.
With the findings made by the National Gendarmerie about the disappearance of manhoods, it could be concluded that it is more of a psychological problem with all those who say their manhood has disappeared.
In other news, we take you to the far north region, where the Marwa 3 council authorities are taking measures to protect the local population. They are painting demolition notices on buildings that are encroaching on the Mayo River's bed. The senior divisional officer for the Diamare says it's a necessary step to prevent disasters and flooding whenever it rains. Immaculate Fogwe reports.
Council authorities take a firm stance in Mara 3, painting demolition notices on buildings deemed to be encroaching on the Mayo River's bed. This move has left many property owners in a state of despair.
When it rains here, the water overflows the tarred roads. It's been a problem for some years, but it's getting worse. We thought that once the Mayo River bed is cleared, we wouldn't have any issues. However, we've noticed that there are buildings on the riverbed obstructing the water flow.
This mother of 4 children, whose husband is a taxi driver, is pleading for leniency while wondering where her family will go to after their home is demolished.
I
have children and my husband is a taxi driver. We built this house with our meager savings. If the state decides to demolish everything today, we can't oppose, but we hope that the state will think of finding us a place to resettle with our children.
The senior divisional officer for Diamare defends the action, citing the need to prevent future disasters.
We will restore the Mayo River bed to its natural course, allowing the water to overflow freely. Some construction will be destroyed to save the entire neighborhood. The goal is to prevent future disasters and ensure the community's safety.
Il faut bel et bien que certaines constructions soient détruites.
With the rainy season approaching, he says demolishing these structures found along the riverbeds is a necessary measure to mitigate the risk of flooding.
And today marks exactly 2 years after the death of one of Cameroon's most prominent political figures, Frundis. Frundis remains the opposition politician who has had the highest score in a presidential election, though his reported 1992 election victory was overturned by some political maneuvers that prevented him from occupying the presidential seat until he died in 2023. Babila Jonathan tells us more about the legacy of Frundis.
The founding national chairman of the Social Democratic in Cameroon's politics, known for his strong opposition to the Paul Biya regime. His political career was marked by several events, like the creation and launching of the Social Democratic Front May 26, 1990, marking the beginning of multi-party politics in Cameroon. His strong performance in the 1992 presidential election, his subsequent detention, and his involvement in the Anglophone crisis. Frundis ran against President Paul Biya in the 1992 election, gaining significant support, especially in his stronghold of the Northwest province at the time. While he lost the election, he received 36% of the vote against Biya's 40%. The opposition, including Frundis and other candidates, condemned the election as fraudulent and attempted to have it annulled by the Supreme Court. Following the election, Frundis was placed under house arrest. In late October 1992, but was released after about a month. The Anglophone crisis, an ongoing armed conflict in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon, has been a significant aspect of Frundis' political career. While not directly involved in the separatist movement, his party, the SDF, has faced challenges due to the conflict. Being very vocal on the crisis while maintaining his federal political stance, he was abducted at least 2 times. Despite his political challenges, Frundis continued to be a prominent figure in Cameroonian politics, advocating for political reforms including the return to the federal system of governance, social justice, and the respect of fundamental rights. He died June 12, 2023 at the age of 81.
May the chairman continue to rest in peace. And now let's talk environmental protection. There has been a growing concern among actors in the management of climate-related projects over government's inability to galvanize adequate funding. The devastating effects of climate change in Cameroon has been visible in its towns and cities lately. Rex Afon met with some actors in the sector who say the inability to properly coordinate activities within ministries involved in the domain makes it more and more difficult to get funds.
It's no stranger to the devastating effects of climate change. Most regions of the country have become hotter than usual.
In Boya, 20, 30 years ago, Boya wasn't like that. I have been in Boya for almost 25 years. And during that time, nobody was ever thinking about having an AC, air conditioner in the house. But now, almost everywhere we need an AC. You walk in, you're sweating.
But while the effects of climate change are clear, the country's response faces significant roadblocks. One of the biggest challenges is the difficulty in galvanizing funds for climate-related projects. Experts point to a lack of coordination amongst the various government ministries involved in climate management.
There is no clear interministerial or interagency platform and avenue for resources mobilization towards this action. So this ministry could be doing a bit of action in this direction and the other ministry or agency is doing a bit in the other direction. If these efforts and resources are not pulled together, we may be dancing on the same spot for a very long time.
The real issue has been more of restructuring, how these funds have to be channeled and how these funds could be managed. Because even within the ministries, there is a divide among themselves.
This workshop in Boya aims at proposing ways through which government can access funds to limit the devastating impact of climate change.
There's been a lot of conversation around, climate disasters, climate insecurity, climate crisis, and leaders all over the world have held sessions and meetings and deliberations and negotiations, and they've come to the conclusion that we cannot address climate change without climate finance.
As the effects of climate change intensify, the need for a coordinated and well-funded response has never been more urgent. Civil society groups are calling for greater transparency, better governance, and the inclusion of local communities in climate decision-making processes.
And now, on to news out of the country. We told you that it has been a sad day today in India and also in London as an Air India aircraft heading to London from India crashed on takeoff from the Ahmedabad airport. The airplane had on board at least 200 persons. And over to South Africa, at least 49 people have died following devastating floods which swept South Africa's Eastern Cape province. Our current page roundup with Cedric Chakutu.
An Air Indian aircraft bound for London's Gatwick Airport crashed on takeoff from Ahmedabad Airport. The flight AI-177 was carrying more than 100 people at the time of the incident. There is, for the moment, no official confirmation on casualties or injuries. India's Minister of Civil Aviation expressed deep concern over the crash. He confirmed that rescue teams had been deployed and that medical and relief support were being rushed to the site. Flight tracking service Flight Radar 24 reported that the aircraft involved was a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner. For now, investigations are ongoing. Elsewhere in South Africa, at least 49 people have died in devastating floods that swept through South Africa's Eastern Cape province, with officials warning that the toll may rise as search and rescue operations continue. The severe weather hit early on Tuesday, bringing torrential rain, strong winds, and even snowfall to some areas. The town of Mata was among the hardest hit, with entire communities displaced and infrastructure damaged. Among the dead were 6 high school students whose bus was swept away by rising floodwaters near a river. Authorities located the bus on Wednesday, but it was empty. 3 other students were rescued clinging to trees, while 4 remained missing. A driver and other adults on the bus were also confirmed dead.
Thanks, Cedric. And that report brings us to the end of the first part of the news, viewers. Let's now move on to talking points. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is Simon Mukete. He is a sports analyst. Thank you so much, Simon, for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Today we are coming back to the cycling tour, which was cancelled in Duala yesterday because of the bumpy nature of the roads. The Cycling Federation said they could not do with the state of the roads in Duala. You are a sports analyst and you're also interested in cycling. According to you, what really didn't go right? What was the problem? Who didn't do his job? The mayor of the Duala City Council didn't take the tour seriously by struggling to fill potholes on the eve of the event? Or can we imagine that maybe the Cycling Federation didn't inform the city councils of the tour on time? Or couldn't they check the state of the roads on the itinerary of the tour on the eve of that event?
I tried to check since this incident happened. I tried to check from all the angles, from the federation, from the city council. I think they never had any working session with the city council to build up towards this event. So this is very sad. I mean, 4 months ago, I mean, the city council was kept away from the organization. That's the truth. They were kept away. They didn't try to meet them to try to see how they can work it out. Remember, for example, when they do the Duala International Marathon, there's a close working relationship between the city council and the organizers of the Duala International Marathon. That's why you see the images are okay. That's why you see the roads are being repaired to make sure that we get to a certain standard. So I'm beginning to be surprised. Why would they organize such an event in Duala without consulting the city council to make sure that everything has been done? Is this a will act that they did to put Duala in difficulties? Because you have to be there's no way you can't link all of this to politics. Why would the organizer decide to organize an event in Duala sitting in Yaoundé and coming into a city, a big city like Duala, without getting the city council involved and all the other various city councils involved in the organization. So there is no way you can put the blame on the Duala City Council, because I know if they were involved from day one, this wouldn't have happened. Because, I mean, it's just a shame on the organizers there. I mean, so that's why you begin to think if there is no agenda behind to try to disgrace Cameroon or to try to show something different about the city. So I don't understand why they kept the Duala City Council away from the organization of these events.
But Mr. Mukete, the president of the Cycling Federation, while speaking to reporters or journalists yesterday, stated clearly that the city mayors were aware of the cycling tour which was to pass in the various cities. That was within the week, because they were in Limbe, that was on Tuesday or so, and they were supposed to do a tour of Duala yesterday. So the president of the Cycling Federation said the city mayor was aware the cyclist was to do the tour in Duala. Now, that's another problem. What about the image of Cameroon, our country? Most of the cyclists were from foreign countries. They were foreigners. What image are we portraying about the state of affairs in Cameroon if there was no collaboration between the city mayors and also the National Cycling Federation?
Definitely, if it's something that's going live on the national television, so which means if the roads are not okay, if the tour, if the itinerary is not well designed or well taken care of, it's going to affect the image of the country. So that's why I'm coming back to what I said previously. I don't understand why the organizers decided not to work in a close relationship with the Duala City Council and the local council, because this would have brought something different. As I said earlier, if you take, for example, the Duala International Marathon, the organizers work very, very closely with the Duala City Council. That's why you can see that the roads are being repaired before the marathon. So if there was a collegial organization with the local council, things would have been done differently. So I think the organizers need to open their organizational community to get the professionals involved, because there is no way. See, if you check, for example, the Duala City Council police were not involved at all in the organization. They would have done a better job because it's a proximity police. And so the city council was kept away. So I think they have to review the organization plan, because this is something that represents the country. This is a competition that sells the image of a country, the image of a city like Douala, that people cannot just play with the city like that and try to do things from Yaoundé without getting involved the local council.
That is your opinions which counts, Mr. Simon Mukete. Now it is your word against the words of the president of the National Cycling Federation. Like I said earlier, he stated clearly that the city mayors were aware the event was going to take place in their various cities. However, what we hope is just that such organizational lapses should not happen in competitions which put the image of the state at stake. Thank you so much, Simon Mukete, for accepting to be our guest tonight on the news. You are a sports analyst and hope to have you some other time, sir. And viewers, that does it for this edition. Thank you so much for always being there. Don't go away. Our programs continue. Equinoxe will be yours at 7 p.m. with Saja Lang, and the news in the French language will be yours at 8 p.m. with Julien Beth-Busai. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television and see you again tomorrow, same time, God willing. Bye-bye for now.